You got your college degree at 30 years old?
I got my college degree when it was in 1996, 1996, 1997. Yeah. Yeah. I was my journalism professor told me at LSU. Well, one, I wasn't a great student because I was having a good time. Like I loved college when I started, so I was having fun. And then I didn't know what I wanted to do. I tried to be like a lawyer and go into like pre-law, and then I was like, oh, maybe I'll study economics. And then because people would tell me that you're not going to make any money as a journalist, and then once I realized like, well, it just shouldn't matter what the money is. I should do what I love. But my journalism professor told me that I would never make it as a journalist, and
Wow.
he wanted me to do something that was more suitable for my talents. And
Mm.
when I was in Louisiana, like to me, having him say that, I knew what was happening. I knew what was up because the people
Yeah.
who were less talented than me, he would kiki with them, the pretty girls and the
Hmm.
blondes. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? And for me, all of
Hmm.
a sudden, I had trouble editing. Instead of him trying to help me learn to edit better, meaning like videotape editing.
Yeah.
He just said, "You're not going to make this," and I'm like, "Okay, well." And then I realized in that moment, in that one instant, when you have those sort
Yeah.
of um, life-defining moments, I realized that I was not going to achieve what I wanted to achieve if I stayed in Louisiana.
Yeah, the local news grind is really hard, and
Yep.
you go to small markets and you work your way up. And I remember, like you said, when people try to kill your dream. My very first job in West Virginia, a guy told me, very few people make it to the top 10 markets, so I don't know how long you're going to do this. And I just looked at him like, little boy, he was a grown ass man, by the way.
Hmm.
I just hate when people try to kill your dreams. But there is something
You
about
know what that feels like, right?
I know it every day, even at work, even currently as we speak, as you are Don Lemon. There are people who want to kill the dream or the idea of who you are. Um, but I love how I know your humility comes from the grind because I've been there. But Don, I think what is interesting that I've watched and I've witnessed, and I'm going to use the word, I've been using it a lot, is the word evolve. When you first came on the scene in Atlanta, I was working at the local CBS station, maybe CBS 46. I think you were hired around the same time or maybe a little bit before TJ Holmes.
I
I remember.
remember you.
Yeah, but everybody was like, look at these two dope black men they just hired. At that time, it felt very special. It felt different. And you guys are
It
on
was
the
me
air.
and TJ Holmes.
Yes, yes, working in your own worlds. And I remember thinking, God, I am so excited to see you rise. And then at, journalism conventions, I'd run up to you and harass you. You and I hosted a few things together. And I know you were really busy, but you went from this person where I think you were yourself, but then you got really authentically yourself. Talk to me about your relationship with the culture. Because at one point, people were just mad at you. Black folks was mad at you. And then we turned around and was like, oh, Don with the shits. Like he's with the
It's interesting because I just had a conversation. I co-produced a documentary with Gary Cohen and others on Colin Kaepernick. And in a way, Colin sort of faced a similar situation. When Colin started to stand up, there were people who were like, whoa, wait a minute. He's the last person we thought who would be standing up and who would be doing these things. I think a lot of the times we don't allow our own people we don't give them the freedom to be all of who they are. And you take a moment in time and you use it to judge someone's entire career or entire existence and entire being. And that is unfair because we don't do that to our white counterparts. Let's just be honest. And so I, I understood and I understand more than ever now what I mean to the culture because it's, we just did an ad week thing for my new show
Mhm.
today in New York. And I mean, people they address other members of the media and even my colleagues like, oh my God, I love watching you. It's great. It's great. It's great. But you know how people address me? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. You stood up for us. You're standing up for us. Thank you for holding my hand during the pandemic. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And that means more than, oh, I love watching you. That's great. Right? That's vanity. But the thank you part is deep. So, look, I think that my white counterparts are allowed to be journalists and to just be truth tellers without carrying the weight of the culture on their back and on their shoulders. And fair or not, I do. And, I accept that. It was hard in the beginning to, be able to do things to give a perspective and a point of view, and then have my own people like judge me and yell at me. But ultimately, people come around, and if you can come around and if you can um, buy the fashion and the sneakers of someone who says that slavery was a choice by Black people, then you can come around to a journalist who's tasked with telling the truth and informing people, regardless of their ethnicity or sexuality or whatever. Um, so I think that's where I stand. I also do think that a lot of the criticism of me from certain people are based in homophobia, and a lot of criticism from me from others, that criticism is based in racism. And I'm a big boy, and the reason why I am where I am now is because I do that, and I keep it pushing, I keep it real, and I keep it moving. But I am always looking out for the underserved. I am always looking out for women. I'm always looking out for Black folks, because if I don't do that, then why the hell am I here?
Yo, my entire ethos about how we move. Uh, Three things that you pointed out. One, I think it's disgusting that people can't appreciate for you, and I know appreciate who you are. Homophobia is real. I think it's even more difficult for you to be in the position you are in and be openly gay. I read that you wanted to come out because of a kid who ultimately was outed by his roommate online and then committed suicide. I'm sure there were other reasons, but maybe that was the
That was the
reason.
reason. That's what I dedicated my book to, and
Yeah.
and it was, and all those things were happening um, when I wrote the book. But I didn't mean to cut you off. But um, that was one of the reasons that I thought it was okay to be able to come out. Yes.
Well, bravo to you. I know it's difficult. There are people, when I see people in today's world who still feel like they have to hide. I mean, I've been in this business for a very long time. I used to have mentors. I used to have guys that I love working with, women I love working with, but they would live this lie. They would have to pretend they were in a whole nother world. And I understand that. But when you came out, how much freedom did you feel no matter how much pushback you had?
Oh my gosh, it was amazing. I mean, listen, the sense of autonomy that I had, just the sense of autonomy that it gave me, and whether, this particular career worked out, or that move to coming out publicly, whether it worked for me in a positive way, career wise, it ultimately didn't matter. Um, it did, because I think it made me a better human being. It made me a better journalist. It gave me more authenticity and more autonomy. And when people say, you're kind of feeling yourself, I started to really come into my own. That's why you said you were real, and then you really became real.
Yeah,
So,
100%.
so it almost didn't matter, because I was free. And when you have that sense of freedom, you're like, well, I am free to do this. And if this doesn't work, then I am free to do something else. So whether if it was a journalist, or working at a fast food place, or, being a car salesman, or whatever it was, I was going to be successful because I was free. And that's all it meant to me.
By the way, that's a proverb. I was going to be successful because I am free. Y'all going to take
Yeah.
that.